Check. One, two, three. Great. Okay, so we're gonna read Oliver Twist today. Chapter one treats of the place where Oliver Twist was born and of the circumstances attending his birth. So, so the word that jumps out immediately to me is the word treats. I don't understand what it means uh, to say treats of the place. Um, However, if I had to guess, I would say Uh, if you give someone a treat, it means that you give them something to enjoy, typically food. Um, and here, I think the author is being uh, sarcastic in, so because I know the context of the novel, I think he is being sarcastic and calling the negative elements of the place as treats. And I think attending his birth is a very, uh, what's the word? It's a very, this is not the right term, but picturesque way of speaking, or rather metaphorical way of speaking, which I really like, um, and of the circumstances. So it's kind of anthropomorphizes nouns, and here circumstances attending his birth, so it feels rich. And I have a preference for it. Circumstances attending his birth. Okay, let's move on. Among other public buildings in a certain town, which for many reasons it will be prudent to refrain from mentioning, and to which I will assign no fictitious name, there is one anciently common to most towns, great or small. There is one anciently common to most towns, great or small, to wit, a workhouse. I don't know what to wit is. And in this workhouse was born, on a day and date which I need not trouble myself to repeat, inasmuch as it can be of no possible consequence to the reader, in this stage of the business at all events. In the stage of the business at all events? Hmm. The item of mortality, wow, whose name is prefixed to the head of this chapter. To the head of this chapter. So, whose name is prefixed to the head of this chapter. So this is the chapter, and where are you referring to the title? But within the title itself, Oliver Twist is not prefixed, or it doesn't occur first. I would assume the prefix appears by itself. But I suppose um, if I were reading this on a physical paper, um, the head of the chapter would be the topmost part of the page where I would probably see Oliver Twist. For a long time after it was ushered into this world of sorrow and trouble by the parish surgeon. Surgeon, okay. I don't know what parish is, but I know that it has to do with uh, religious buildings, more specifically Christianity. It remained a matter of considerable doubt whether the child would survive to bear any name at all. Wow, bear, bear. Okay, wow, that's a very poetic way of saying this. In which case, it is somewhat more than probable that these memoirs would have never never have appeared, or if they had, that being comprised within a couple of pages, they would have possessed the inestimable merit of being the most concise and faithful specimen of biography extant in the literature of any age or country. Although I am not disposed to maintain that being born in a workhouse is in itself the most fortunate and enviable circumstance that one can possibly befall a human being, I do not mean to say that in this particular instance it was the best thing for Oliver Twist that could by possibility have occurred. The fact is that there was considerable difficulty in inducing Oliver to take upon himself the office of respiration. The office of respiration. A troublesome practice, but one which custom has rendered necessary to our easy existence. And for some time he lay gasping on a little flock mattress, rather unequally poised between this world and the next, a balance being decidedly in favor of the latter. Now, if during this brief period Oliver had been surrounded by careful grandmothers, anxious aunts, experienced nurses, and doctors of profound wisdom, he would most inevitably and indubitably have been killed in no time. There being nobody by, however, but a pauper old woman, I don't know what pauper is, who was rendered rather misty by an unwonted allowance of beer. I assume misty means slightly drunk, and a parish surgeon who did such matters by contract. Oliver and nature fought out the point between them. The result was that after a few struggles, Oliver breathed, sneezed, and proceeded to advertise to the inmates of the workhouse the fact of a new burden having been imposed upon the parish, by setting up as loud a cry as could reasonably have been expected from a male infant who had not been possessed by that very useful appendage of voice for a much longer space of time than 3 minutes and a quarter. I'm not sure what this appendage here refers to. As Oliver gave this first proof of the free and proper action of his lungs, the patchwork coverlet which was carelessly flung over the iron bedstead rustled. I don't know what bedstead is. The pale face of a young woman was raised feebly from the pillow, and a faint voice imperfectly articulated the words, "Let me see the child and die." The surgeon had been sitting with his face turned towards the fire, giving the palms of his hands a warm and a rub, a, a warm and a rub alternately. A warm and a rub alternately. As the young woman spoke, he rose, advancing to the bed's head, said, with more kindness than might have been expected of him, "Oh, you must not talk about dying yet." "Lord bless her dear heart, no," interposed the nurse, hastily depositing in her pocket a green glass bottle, the contents of which she had been tasting in a corner with evident satisfaction. "Lord bless her dear heart, when she has lived as long as I have, sir, and had 13 children of her own, and all on dead except 2, and in them in the workes with me, she'll know better than to take on in that way. Bless her dear heart. Think what it is to be a mother. There's a dear young lamb, too." Apparently, this consolatory perspective of a mother's prospects failed in producing its due effect. The patient shook her head and stretched out her hand towards the child. The surgeon deposited it in her arms. She imprinted her cold white lips passionately on its forehead, passed her hands over her face, gazed wildly round, shuddered, fell back, and died. They chafed her breast, hands, and temples, but the blood had stopped forever. They talked of hope and comfort. They had been strangers too long. It's all over, Mrs. Thingamy, said the surgeon at last. Ah, poor dear, so it is, said the nurse, picking up the cork of the green bottle, which had fallen out of the pillow as she stopped to take up the child. Out on the pillow. Poor dear. You needn't mind sending up to me if the child cries, nurse, said the surgeon, putting on his gloves with great deliberation. Deliberation. It's very likely it will be troublesome. Give it a little gruel if it is. He put on his hat, and pausing by the bedside on his way to the door, she was a good-looking girl, too. Where did she come from? She was brought here last night, replied the old woman, by the overseer's order. She was found lying in the street. She had walked some distance, for her shoes were worn to pieces, but where she came from or where she was going to, nobody knows. The surgeon leaned over the body and raised the left hand. The old story, he said. No wedding ring, I see. Ah, good night. Yeah, this is actually quite sad. The medical gentleman walked away to dinner, and the nurse, having once more applied herself to the green bottle, sat down on a low chair before the fire and proceeded to dress the infant. What an excellent example of the power of dress young Oliver Twist was! Wrapped in a blanket which had hitherto formed only his covering, which had hitherto formed his only covering, he might have been the child of a nobleman or a beggar. It would have been hard for the haughtiest stranger to have assigned him his proper station in society. But now that he was enveloped in the old calico robes which had grown yellow in the same service, he was badged and ticketed, right, and fell into his place at once, a parish child, the orphan of a workhouse, the humble, half-starved drudge, to be cuffed and buffeted through the world, despised by all and pitied by none. I don't understand why the child would be cuffed and buffeted through the world is sign of being pushed around. For example, when the wind buffets the windows. Oliver cried lustily. If he could have known that he was an orphan, left to the tender mercies of churchwardens and overseers, perhaps he would have cried the louder. The louder. Okay. Interesting. Um, I don't know what an overseer or a church warden is, but I assume a church warden is the head of the parish, and overseers or a church warden is someone who maintains order, people that maintain order at a church, and an overseer is um, someone. uh, lower in rank than a church warden. Okay, that was chapter 1. I'm going to take a quick break now to process my thoughts, and I might move on to chapter 2 or I might not, depending on the result of the processing that occurred in this break. Yeah. All right. So chapter two treats of Oliver Twist's growth, education, and board. So come to think of it, I think treat here might mean treatment, and here it could mean giving an account of something, that form of treatment, and however, shortening it from treatment to treat does seem a little odd, and however, it probably is in keeping with the time uh, during which this novel was published. For the next 8 or 10 months, Oliver was the victim of a systematic course of treachery and deception. Treachery. So, treachery is um, undermining someone in authority. Uh, and deception is, well, um, saying something and doing something else and deceiving someone. He was brought up by hand. I don't know what by hand is. The hungry and destitute situation of the infant orphan. Destitute is, I think, homeless, or actually, destitute means without any means whatsoever. And homeless is one of the things that attends destitution. But the other thing is, of course, lack of means. Was duly reported by the workhouse authorities to the parish authorities. The parish authorities inquired with dignity of the workhouse authorities whether there was no female then domiciled. Interesting, domiciled. Domicile is to live. It's a formal word for live in the house, who was in a situation to impart to Oliver Twist the consolation and nourishment of which he stood in need. The workhouse the workhouse authorities replied with humility that there was not. Humility. Hmm. Upon this, the parish authorities magnanimously and humanely resolved that Oliver should be farmed, or, in other words, that he should be dispatched to a branch workhouse some 3 miles off, where 20 or 30 other juvenile offenders against the poor laws rolled about the floor all day without the inconvenience of too much food or too much clothing, under the parental superintendence of an elderly female who received the culprits at and for the consideration of 7 pence halfpenny per small head per week. 7 pence halfpenny's worth per week is a good round diet for a child. A great deal may be got for 7 pence halfpenny, quite enough to overload its stomach, and make it uncomfortable. The elderly female was a woman of wisdom and experience. She knew what was good for children, and she had a very accurate perception of what was good for herself, too. So she appropriated the greater part of the weekly stipend to her own use and consigned the rising parochial generation to even a shorter allowance than was originally provided for them, thereby finding in the lowest depth a deeper depth still, and proving herself to a very great experimental philosopher. Yes, very obviously being sarcastic here. And I really like the way everything is written here. Um, it seems to be described in very poetic terms, for lack of another word. But yeah, it's a very ornate form of writing, and it stands out. So I'm not sure what the right adjective here is, but it stands out. Uh, Let me actually look up the definition of experimental philosopher. Everybody knows the story of another experimental philosopher who had a great theory about a horse being able to live without eating, and who demonstrated it so well that he had his own horse down to a straw a day, and would unquestionably have rendered him a very spirited and rampacious animal on nothing at all. Rampacious, uh, full of energy, I assume, if he had not died 4 and 20 hours before he was to have had his first comfortable bait of air. Bait of air? Unfortunately for the experimental philosopher of the female to whose protecting care Oliver Twist was delivered over. Right, so I don't understand what branch workhouse is. There we go. Uh, Farmed. I don't understand what farmed here means. This is a branch workhouse where juvenile offenders against the poor laws. Okay, so these are uh, juveniles that have uh, broken the law, and so therefore it's a workhouse for them. But an orphan doesn't belong there, does he? Was delivered over, a similar result usually attended the operation of her system, for at the very moment when the child contrived to exist upon the smallest possible portion of the weakest possible food, it did perversely happen in the 8.5 cases out of 10, either that it sickened from want and cold, or fell into the fire from neglect. Wow. Or got half smothered by accident. In any one of which cases, the miserable little being was usually summoned into another world, and there gathered to the fathers. It had never known this. And there gathered to the fathers. It had never known this. Interesting. Occasionally, when there was some more than usually interesting inquest upon a parish child who had been overlooked in turning up a bedstead, mm, turning up a bedstead. There we go. So the bedstead was offered to Oliver's mother, but uh, the child was overlooked. That is, they didn't um, consider that she might be pregnant. Then usually interesting inquest, uh, when there was a more than usually interesting inquest upon a Paris child. Inquest. I don't know what an inquest is. Or inadvertently scalded scalded to death when there happened to be a washing. Scalded. So scalding hot water means it's so hot that it kind of almost uh, peels your skin off your flesh. But let's look into whether I'm pronouncing it correctly. Scald, 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 scald. Yeah, it's an O. It's a scald. It's not scald, but scald. Though the latter accident was very scarce, anything approaching to a washing being rare occurrence in the farm. Excuse me. The jury would take it into their heads to ask troublesome questions, or the parishioners would rebelliously affix their signatures to a remonstrance. But these impertinences were speedily checked. Impertinent. Impertinences were speedily checked by the evidence of the surgeon and the testimony of the beadle. Excuse me. I don't know. My throat feels very itchy. I don't know who a beadle is. The former of whom had always opened the body and found nothing inside, which was very probable indeed, and the latter of whom invariably swore whatever the parish wanted, which was very self-devotional. Besides, the board made periodical pilgrimages to the farm and always sent the beadle the day before to say they were going. The children were neat and clean to behold when they went, and what more would the people have? Interesting. It seems like the jury themselves, or the people overlooking the system themselves, um, didn't. Gosh. Themselves wanted to see a clean and well maintained uh, situation. Okay, I think I'm actually going to stop here. I can continue the next stream. The next stream, I'll continue from this paragraph here. It cannot be expected that this system of farming would produce any very extraordinary or luxuriant crop. Luxuriant crop. Okay. Yeah, but this is incredible writing. It's very, I can sense sarcasm, um, but it's very metaphorical and poetic. But before that, sarcasm. Okay, sarcastic. 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 Cool. I'm just processing some thoughts to see if it's possible to actually continue instead of resuming the reading on the next stream. Okay, I think I would actually like to go over or react to and share share my thoughts related on one of uh, the videos that Primogen recently uploaded. Something about uh, Microsoft integrating AI, making Windows essentially more agentic. I think I actually want to do that now. So let's give that a try. I think it should be okay to play the video on stream, uh, as long as I pause it often and share my thoughts. Let me quickly set up the video. working on setting up the video. Just give me a few seconds. Let's go to the prime time. That's the channel. And I think I want to turn on audio as well. Turn on capture of audio as well. Capture of system audio as well. So I think I can do that using this button here. Let's see if that works.
Want to make videos about Microsoft. I don't desire want to make videos about Microsoft. I don't desire
That works. Okay, so that works. So let me. Okay, this is the first time I'm doing this, so excuse me if it appears slow. Yeah, let's go on. Let's start the video.
to crap on what they're creating to yuck their yum, but sometimes they do things that are so stupid that I just have to. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm done. They've already hit the lowest bar with the Agentic OS, and I was actually wrong. I was actually incorrect. This is turning into a series, and I don't think that.
Right. So I think he is referencing one of his earlier videos on Windows being made into an agentic OS. And I actually disagreed with many of his points. I feel that he was coming from a place of emotion and not rationality, because many of the features that he was complaining about that were being integrated into Windows, I can see common people finding them useful. Yeah, I certainly do think that certain Windows features like uh, like having ads in the start menu, that's a no-brainer, no-no, right? It's just a no-no. It's like that's a no-brainer no-no. But Microsoft does it anyway because, well, there it makes sense because financially, I think, again, these are first draft thoughts, but I think financially it makes sense for Microsoft to put ads in the start menu if that's a source of revenue. However, speaking of the integration of AI, I do not think that they're going to integrate AI um, uh, were it not useful to the end user, because running these models costs money. Of course, I can't speak to the the amount they're willing to lose in order to gain adoption. However, I think that these are intentional design uh, design software design decisions that they undertook that they took rather to improve the user experience. And I think a rational treatment of the matter is necessary. And I think the Primogen is approaching this from an emotional standpoint. This is as far as I can tell, but let's watch the video and let me see if I'm able to catch specific claims that I think are emotional.
This series is good for the world. Welcome to Microsoft did that again. So today we're going to look at this. Microsoft admitted that File Explorer is slow and can take longer than usual to load, and they're going to fix it in the Windows 11 update. Okay, very cool. Microsoft is finally addressing this problem that's been going around that you see posted all over the place. Windows Explorer is kind of slow, which is a little bit ridiculous because when you think about it, Windows Explorer is just a GUI wrapper over LS. Like that's what else are you doing in this? Okay, yeah, there's a few other features. I get it, but there's a lot of complicated apps. Showing a file in a directory just can't, I refuse to accept it. I don't care what people say. When people say, oh no, trust me, bro, it's really, really complicated. I'm like, no, there's no way it's complicated. You know how I know? Because this thing right here, File Pilot, 2.06 megabytes for the executable size. It's so small that people don't even think it's real. It's so small, in fact, that Windows keeps identifying it as a virus. It can open up the File Explorer in 300 milliseconds, and a portion of that time.
I think it's qualitatively different from LS, no? Because LS is a command line tool, and it doesn't offer a lot of convenience functions. For example, compressing a file. For example, in the Windows File Explorer, I think I can right-click on a file and compress it. I can open with different applications, and I assume the graphical code for all of that is quite complex. And on the sidebar, you have a lot of other things as well. And yeah, I think that topic requires a treatment of its own, and saying that it's just a GUI wrapper or GUI wrapper around LS, I think that's too broad a statement to be making. And it seems to be coming from a content generation perspective that is trying to say something interesting for more interesting content rather than something that one actually believes in rationally after thoughtfully.
Is purely spent on GL init. No, really, it does. It boots up in literally like 300 milliseconds. The creator was inspired by a little baby-faced Casey Muratori right there. There's a little handmade hero. Oh my gosh. So you can't tell me that it's impossibly hard to write one of these, that people can do it, okay? Just one engineer can do it. So surely Microsoft is going to provide us with an incredible set of details about how they're going to fix this problem. Microsoft plans to preload the File Explorer when you boot your PC. I don't even know what to say to this. Like, honestly, like... Okay, first off, I'm not gonna blame the thing that everybody thinks I'm going to blame, okay? Because I'm not gonna do it. No, I refuse to accept it. You know why? Because these type of idiotic decisions can't come from something so stupid as an LLM, okay? They don't have the creativity.
Right, so this is another take of the Primogen that I disagree with, where, yeah, he seems to think that LLMs are like useless for programming, and he seems to comment against a lot of the articles that come up about software engineers being replaced by AI. I mean, granted, those articles themselves are pretty badly written and are false, but they're false for other reasons. I believe that they're false for other reasons than what the Primogen speaks about.
To make this bad of a decision. This kind of decision can only come from an agentic manager, okay? This is somebody who has bought the Kool-Aid, who all eyes are on the prize, and so they just take the weirdest shortcuts to make things work, because this is not an engineering solution. You cannot tell me this is an engineering solution. I refuse to believe that you need to have a background worker to show a set of files. It's not real. Microsoft, this can't be real. But Microsoft decided not to stop there with its updates. It's decided that it's going to make the next greatest update ever. You know that old program Notepad? Yeah, you know that one that no one really liked? Tab indenting was 8 spaces. And hey, you just used it when you got to use it, okay? We all edited in any file from time to time in Notepad. Not a big...
Right. So Notepad was a very bare bones editor, and I think it was, for sure, it was not the greatest, but I think it was okay. Um, uh, yeah, I just think that he's being very emotional here.
Deal. Well, Microsoft decided, you know what you need a notepad? You need tables, okay? We need to have the ability to have tables. Ask literally nobody ever.
Yeah, so I wonder what the extension of the file is going to be. Is it similar to rich text documents on macOS? So are they creating a new uh, document type uh, specifically for Notepad and making that the default? If they are, I think that's okay actually. Um, if people are able to create, if people need a simple word processor uh, or want to store information in text files as opposed to documents, which are typically for presentation uh, or collaboration. I think this is actually an okay decision.
But Notepad would like to deliver that to you. But Notepad said, wait a second, okay? There's so much more room in this bad boy. They're going to fit streaming AI results in here. Is that right? I mean, they actually, I just get so frustrated thinking about this. They actually are going to make Notepad into an AI. Yes, the program that probably has not been updated since Windows 95 has decided this year they're going to start running with it. They're going to make the next Obsidian competitor by making it Microsoft version of it. Notepad, this is the new Notepad++, okay? Not the old Notepad++, the new Notepad. All right? This one is going to be used to monetize people. I swear you're going to need a Notepad subscription here within a year. It's going to feel horrible. Imagine opening up Notepad and getting hit with a, hey, would you like to log into OneDrive first? No, please. When will the beating stop? But I do actually have.
Okay, yeah, I do think that the excessive push to move to like a OneDrive, I think that's a problem on Windows. This particular point I do agree with. Uh, I wonder if his prediction is going to come true. And since he's been in the industry for a long time, I think that his prediction does hold some weight. So it is something to consider.
Some pretty incredible news in all of this. I think Microsoft has so thoroughly fumbled the bag that something magical has happened. Look at this. It took 8 years to go from 1% to 2%. By pray tell, what are they talking about? This is internet desktop traffic from Linux machines. In 2021, it got up to 2%. By 2023, we are up to 3%. By 2024, we are up to 4%. In June this year, 5%, over 5% in the United States of America has officially used Linux as their desktop browsing experience. This is a milestone, people, okay? I understand normies are never going to be using Linux, okay? Or most normies, okay? Grandmas out there, they're just not installing Arch, okay?
Yeah, I think that qualification there is important. So people that that are computer literate could be moving to Linux because of how Microsoft Windows is not, because of how bad Microsoft Windows is getting. But that's just one of the possibilities. I assume they could be moving to Windows because of a wide range of other things as well. So I think that probably require a treatment of its own. That the specific point about he seems to be making the implication that we're seeing an upward trend in Linux desktop traffic because, and by extension, Linux desktop use, because of Microsoft fumbling the bag. But I think that is not a logical. It doesn't seem to be a very logical claim to be making. Uh,
Even I know Omachi makes it easy. They're still not the target market. But nonetheless, like we're seeing in real time, we're seeing a shift happening. Is Microsoft's inability to write a file explorer slash their nonstop desire to shove AI into everything the cause of it? Is it Apple's inability to somehow design nice looking things now? Who would have guessed that would have happened in the ever marching expensiveness of their products? Or is Linux actually just
Ever marching expensiveness of their products. I think Apple actually, their a recent MacBook Air was, or I think their recent but one edition of the 15-inch MacBook Air was actually priced $100 less than it did in the previous year. So I'm not sure what he's talking about here.
that good these days? Is it actually happening without billions upon billions of dollars and thousands of engineers working on it simultaneously, nonstop, 24/7? The year of the Linux desktop was always kind of a joke, a little bit of a meme. Maybe it's not. Hey, I hope you liked this video. I really was I was very excited about yapping about it, and I'm very excited again. Just want to say a special thank you. Thank you for, getting me there. That million, so close. We are like 45,000 out.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I just don't think this was a very logical video. I think his take didn't seem grounded in sufficient logic and reason. Uh, just give me a second. Okay, yeah, so that was my reaction to this. A friend just invited me over to lunch, so I'm just gonna go there. Uh, I'm just gonna go and have lunch now. But yeah, um, I actually like this format of reacting to a video and sharing my thoughts about it. I think it's helping me linearize and structure my thoughts and evaluate the logical correctness of claims made by other people. Yeah, it's fun. All right, catch y'all later.